Welcome to Authentic Influence with host Anthony Chansamuth, the show where we get real and share the stories and struggles, strategies and tactics of successful influencers and entrepreneurs so that you too can take action to create the life and business that you choose. And now over to Anthony.
So in our last episode, we talked about the importance of creating great content. But what makes great content that people actually want to read and share? As Tim Soulo of Ahrefs says in his Business of Blogging course, the quality of your content predetermines the very success of your blog. And a few ingredients that Tim shares in the course are 1, quality, 2, uniqueness, and 3, authority. So let's go through each one of those, and I'm going to give you some examples along the way. So let's start with quality. The question that we really want to ask here is, how well does this content answer the person's question or match their search intent? So when they're going to Google and they're typing in, how to make chocolate cake, right? Or something like that. And then Google returns a page of results, and what they're looking for is which is the best article or piece of content, could be a video, that answers my question quickly and gives me exactly what I need to go away and bake that cake, right? Now, if imagine that person then sees some content that doesn't actually answer the question, right? It basically goes on to try and sell some kind of product without ever really answering the question. How would they feel? What would be the user experience? Imagine if that was you. How would you respond to that? You'd probably click away and go to one of the other results, right? So that's what happens. So how can we improve quality, right? There are a few tips here. The first one is to learn how to write in a compelling way. Okay, and this is really what writers and copywriters like myself spend years, learning and practicing. Okay, and like any skill, anything that you've learned to pick up, over the years, you start off as a beginner, as a novice, and you just write. Okay, and then you can do some courses, you can look at YouTube videos, listen to podcasts, attend workshops and whatnot, and you can pick up different skills and tips and tricks on how to write better and start incorporating that. But you can read as much as you want, you won't get better until you actually start writing. Okay, and the more you write, the better you get, especially as you incorporate feedback and focus on how to write in a compelling and persuasive way, right? So some people ask me what copywriting course have I done and these sort of things. There's one that I could recommend, which is actually called copywritingcourse.com, and it starts with a K, by Neville. You can just Google that, and I'll include that in the show notes. And that's a really good primer for copywriting. Now, there are other sites like copyhackers.com that I can also recommend, right? So you want to learn to write well. But it's about, not just copying someone else's tips and techniques. It's about evolving your own style and your own voice. Okay. And that's where it really becomes powerful, right? So that's tip number 1, learn to write well. Tip number 2 is to improve how your content looks. And what we're talking about here is research has shown, and you probably already know the difference between landing on a article, which is, 2,000 words, just strings and strings of text, no paragraphs. It just reminds me of those massive textbooks that we used to read in high school. And I hated them because it was just a drag to try and read it. I'm thinking of Encyclopedia Britannica, which might age me, but even they had pictures, right? So you really want to think about how the content looks when it's sitting on your website or when you're presenting it to people. So what you can do to improve how it looks is to include quality images, okay? And you may have heard, the common tip here is to avoid stock images as much as possible. And I would normally agree with that if you're writing about something that has to do with your own world where you can share photos of experiences that you've had or your team have had. So if we were to write an article about our team retreat, we would then include photos of that retreat. That would make sense, right? But if you're writing about some kind of business topic or some other topic that doesn't make sense for you to include photos from your own world, then don't do that. And stock photos, I think, is better in many cases than not having any photos at all and just strings of text. That's my opinion anyway. You can also use short paragraphs, subheadings, quotes. You can embed lists into your text. You just want to break up the long strings of text and not. I've seen articles where there's no paragraphs and it's just words, and it's almost like blah. Okay, so yeah, use those different formatting options. Okay, and you can also add visuals such as graphs, infographics, multimedia elements like audio. You can embed your podcast audio. You can also embed videos, right? So something that works really nicely, and Google really likes this, is when you go and find related YouTube videos, or even better, videos that you've created and put onto YouTube, and you embed those videos into the articles. All right. So that's a good thing to do. You can also embed slide shares if you use those. If you don't know what that is, go check it out. Okay. So tip number 2 is to improve how your content looks. That will help with the quality. Tip number 3 is make sure that you're using an attention-grabbing headline. Okay, now your headline is the single most shared piece of your article when it hits social media. So that's the one thing that we all see. And if the headline is not compelling enough, it's not going to get people curious enough to want to click. The first is stop scrolling on their feeds, and secondly, to click through to read your article. Right, so you do want to invest more time into getting the right headline for your article. And a couple of tips here is, one, you could use a tool called the Headline Analyzer tool, which is created by CoSchedule, and that's a really neat tool. It's free. I think you need to sign up to use it, but it's still free. And you go in there, you type in variations of your headline, and it gives you a score. And basically, you're trying to get to the closest score as possible to 100. I've never gotten there. I think the highest is like 74 or something. And so that's a good tool. Just as a practice, what you can do is you can brainstorm at least 5 headline variations for each article that you write. And then once you've got those, a neat thing to do is to go and run polls using those headlines in social media. So if you're in a Facebook group community, or in a Slack group, or just even on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever you're using, you can literally just post a poll and say, here's 3 headlines for my next article. What do you think? Which one do you like the most and why? Right. And so people can vote on that. And then you'll see which, headlines resonate the most. Now, the key to making any survey or poll work is to make sure that you're actually doing a poll in groups that are your target audience, all right, for that specific piece of content. Otherwise, it's not going to work. But that could be really useful, and it will save you a ton of time, and it will make sure that when you do publish, that headline is going to grab people's attention, right? So that's all about quality, right? That step or ingredient number 1 for making your content great is to ensure that you have great quality. Okay, now step number 2 is uniqueness, right? What we're talking about here is, if you're just copying someone else's idea, if the idea itself is not unique, right? Maybe you're writing a blog post about content marketing, right, which is a topic that I'm talking about right now, and I'm writing and speaking about all the time, right? So what you want to do is find, your unique perspective there. Okay, maybe you have an original idea. Maybe you've got original research that you've conducted. So you've surveyed, 100 or 200 or 1,000 businesses, and you've worked out a specific practice that they're doing, or something. You're presenting data that's new and different in some way. Okay, or just it could just be the most recent, right? But just keep in mind that if you're focused on the most recent, then you're going to have to update it again, perhaps in 12 months time to keep it recent, right? original research, a contrarian perspective, or even how you present that same information. Okay, so a good example of this is there is a blog called Wait But Why, and if you go and check that out, it's one of my favorite blogs. Uh, and the thing that makes it really different is the blogger. His name is Tim. He basically creates these visuals where he draws them like really they're not great drawings. If you look at them, they're actually just stick figures, but they bring the point across and they visualize the concepts that he writes about. Now, the other thing that's going on is he's a mad researcher, so his articles typically are 2,000 up to 5,000 words long. Um, like a ton of research, and it literally takes him like months to put together one article, right? So uniqueness is something that when you're bringing something that's unique, that will naturally attract people to it because it's different, right? So I feel a couple of other examples here is there's an article that was published by Tara McMullen recently on her What Works or explorewhatworks.com website. And I'm just going to have a look at the title. Basically, the title is What I Wish Every Small Business Owner Knew About Marketing. It's a long form article. It's got some really nice visuals embedded into that. She's got her designer doing little sketches, what are drawings, but they're drawings of concepts that she writes about in the article or talks about. And what really stands out about this article is she's writing or writing from experience, right? She's a master small business strategist. She's been in the game for a long time, and she really presents, to me, probably the most comprehensive explanation of marketing. And the way she's done it is quite different because she actually presents 3 questions that you should be asking to really get clear on what your marketing, whether or not your marketing is working. Okay. And so this is a really great article. I'm going to link to that in the show notes, but you definitely want to take a look at that one because it's, there are really hundreds, if not millions or thousands of blog posts around on marketing. But like I said, this is the one that over 10 years of me being in the industry, one that stood out the most, and it's the most recent one that I've read. Right. So another someone else who does really well is Spark Toro. So Rand Fishkin, and his blog is just blows me away every time. If you don't know of Rand or have never heard of him, he was the founder of Moz.com, and he kind of made famous the whiteboard videos because he did all his explanation of SEO concepts using a whiteboard, and that's become even the norm now. I'm sure you've seen a ton of these whiteboard videos, but Moz and Rand they kind of started it many years ago. So there are a few examples for you of content that's unique and stands out. I'm going to give you one more example here, which is in 2012, TheVerge.com published an article which is really controversial. It's called Scam World, Get Rich Quick Scheme. Schemes mutate into an online monster. And it basically calls out a whole bunch of different internet marketers and talks about modern snake oil salesmen. And that particular article got annoyed a lot of people. And it got over 1,000 comments, 4,500 Facebook likes, almost 2,000 tweets, backlinks from major internet marketing blogs, and had the whole industry talking about it. All right. And so that's the kind of content that, they took a stand. They knew it's going to annoy some people, but it also got a lot of traction and views as well. Right. So think about what can you talk about in your industry that, maybe you're saying, oh, this is what everyone's saying, but you don't necessarily agree with that. And you can present a contrarian view. And that's something that can work really well. Okay, but you got to be able to stand behind that and present a solid argument as to why you're saying it's not accurate. Okay, so that's ingredient number 2 is uniqueness. Now the third ingredient is authority, and the question here around authority is, what's your credibility? Do people see you as a credible source for your industry, right? Are you a thought leader in your space because you're at the cutting edge of the industry? You're up on stages speaking, or summits on podcasts, or you're being invited to conferences or whatnot, and you're speaking about your topic, or you're writing a lot about it, and you're presenting ideas that are new. Okay, so a couple of people that come to mind here is Brené Brown, and all the talks, all the TED talks that she's done, the books that she's published, and all the research she's done around everything from mental health to vulnerability and those research topics that she's known for now. Okay, the other person that comes to mind right away is Simon Sinek, and he's done really well with the whole ask why and lead with why concepts and the golden circle, and that's someone who presented a concept that really resonated with the audience that he was presenting it to, and then published a whole lot of content around that. And it's getting booked. These people are getting booked and paid thousands of dollars to go and speak in front of audiences, right? So that's authority. Now, what if you're not an authority like that? What if you're not a thought leader and that's not actually your role and that's not what you do? Okay, so then what you can do is actually you can borrow authority. Okay, and that's something that I'm going to list some names here that you probably recognize. And what I mean by borrowing authority is you can actually interview the industry leaders, the people who are the leaders in your space. Okay, not everyone's going to be an Elon Musk, right? They're really reserved for like the 1% of the population, but you might notice, you might recognize some of these names, right? So Joe Rogan, podcaster, interviewed Elon Musk on his podcast, right? Oprah Winfrey interviewed Desmond Tutu, right? Archbishop Desmond Tutu on her show, on her TV show when she had it. Larry King interviewed Nelson Mandela, okay? Charlie Rose interviewed Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And Dr. Phil, he interviewed a whole bunch of celebrities about their personal lives to help them solve their problems on his show, which is Dr. Phil. And he first appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show as someone that was an up-and-coming person in what he does. And so there are a bunch of individuals who really built their credibility by interviewing other people, right? And so you can be that person. And this is why I believe that podcasts and Facebook Lives and LinkedIn Lives and these sort of things are really a powerful medium, right? And Clubhouse has taken off in a big way because it really allows people, hosts, to host these experts, and then they can build that authority for themselves. And that's something that you can do for yourself as well. All right. So they are the 3 different ways that you can make your content great. Just a quick recap: 1 is quality, 2 is uniqueness, and 3 is authority. All right. So let's just leave this episode with that. And I just want to encourage you to think about how can you incorporate those 3 different elements in what you do into your content. If you have any questions at all, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening. Now, just quickly, if you want to check out the show notes for this episode, just head over to simplecreativemarketing.com/podcast, and you can grab all the links and things and resources on there. And also, if you are a conscious entrepreneur, got a professional services business, working B2B, and you've got an interest in building influence and income through showing up, serving others, and being real, then I invite you to join my Authentic Influence Warriors Facebook group. If you want to do that, just head over to simplecreativemarketing.com/community. Okay, thanks for joining in, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Authentic Influence podcast at AuthenticInfluence.co.